Kenton.
Welcome back. Welcome back to Kenton and Abiba, take two. We were on for a second there, but I needed to go back and put in a title. Okay, so for those of you that are here, this is Kenton, I'm Habiba, and we are going to be talking about an important subject today, the issue on the school shooting. So I'm sure you heard about the shooting in Wisconsin that happened, yet another school shooting here in the United States. And I thought not specifically about that particular story or that particular, which is ongoing. Obviously, there's an investigation ongoing, but I thought it'd be important to talk about the concept or idea of parenting, and also whether or not you agree or believe parents should be held responsible when their children, even if they are young adults or children specifically, commit such crimes. Yeah, I just wanted to start off with that. We're going to take it from different points of view or different angles. I'm going to try to talk about all the different, I guess, thought processes that have come up and concerns. But again, specifically, if we focus on parents, but first of all, Kenton, would you like to give them just sort of a brief synopsis of the actual case for those that don't know? I mean, the little that we do know, because I didn't really say anything about what had happened.
About the shooting in Wisconsin. So there was at the Abundant Life Christian School, and you had a 15-year-old female,
Right,
who was a student there, and she opened fire with a handgun, killing two, injuring six, I believe.
right,
And one was a teacher and was another teen student, and there's still ongoing investigation in regards to motive, as well as and also trying to determine where she got access to the handgun.
right.
Yeah. Okay.
Right. So yeah, basically, exactly. It's the investigation is ongoing. You got a 15-year-old, and what's also a little unusual is that it's a female. I mean, I don't know, but isn't most crimes like that typically committed by boys or males?
Yeah,
Right. So that's also different.
Anywhere from 3 to 4% is female, so it's extremely low.
Right. So yeah, of course we don't know anything, or we don't know enough about the young female who committed the crime, except that we do know, obviously, again, the crime was committed with a handgun in a school. So that raises a lot of questions, a lot of issues, but some of these are not even new. That's the thing. They're not new. You know, if you live in the United States, you know that guns are a major concern and shootings in schools are not new. But I just thought, I don't know, personally, the question comes up, should parents be held responsible when your child does such a crime? And we don't know, again, anything about her parents, except the little that we do know is that she did come from what you would call traditionally, a broken home or a troubled home. Her parents were not together, her biological parents, and they both remarried several times, apparently, and she was having to go from one home to the other on different days, which is, again, not something completely new in the United States, but I'm sure it played a role in her mental health or in her social situation. So yeah, let me quickly say hi to whoever's on, and then I just wanted you to speak on that, Kenton. So let's see who's on. Selena Saxton says, good evening, Kenton and Habiba. Thank you for always sharing your thoughts. Ricky B says, stop judging people. Hello, this is a conversation. This is not about judging people. And we'll get into that. So Ricky B, hang on there, okay? This is not just about judging people. No one's saying that the parents are bad. We don't know anything about the parents. This is a general discussion, again, about the issue, and many of us in the room might be parents or are parents or grandparents, and it's just something to discuss and see your point of view. Okay, Ricky B says you are taking the moral high ground. I hope so. I don't know. We'll see. All right, Kenton, your thoughts about, I guess, parents. Do you think, for example, again, not knowing anything about this girl's parents, they could be great parents because sometimes, you could be the best parent and your child still goes up and does something effed up or does something totally unexpected. So we're not blaming all parents, but it's becoming just more and more prevalent that you see, children committing such horrific crimes that we realize someone has to be blamed or something
Well,
and someone's have to be blamed.
well, yeah, blame, but I think so let's take it from a let's talk about the framework. Because I think
Okay.
sometimes what happens is that when we start throwing words like blame and judging and
Well,
stuff, well,
responsible.
yeah, let's use more possible about responsible liability.
Mm-hmm.
So moving away from judging, because then that creates a
Right.
subjective. So
Mm-hmm.
let's be objective about this. Let's be evidence based.
Okay.
So, because again, we work in an operative framework of responsibility, liability, and so
Mm-hmm.
forth. So when you start going into, oh, we shouldn't judge and stuff, then that creates sense that then someone has to make a determination of responsibility. So let's put things in perspective. So for 2024, there's, depending upon how you classify school shootings, there
Right.
have been anywhere as a minimum of 38 classified school shootings, all the way
Mm-hmm.
up to 83.
Wow.
So just to put that in perspective, that means from a conservative, narrow definition, that's a school shooting every other week,
Wow.
okay? Because there's 52 weeks in a year,
Mm-hmm.
or as frequent as twice a week,
Hmm.
okay? So that just gives you a perspective that we are in, from a public health perspective, a crisis, because we shouldn't be having school shootings. And again, I teaching at a major university, we had a school
Right.
shooting just last year where a professor
Right.
lost his life. Okay,
Right.
we had shut down. We also had a second incident where someone was at the student center on campus a year ago. Shortly after that, in the spring of this year,
Mm-hmm.
who was waving a weapon in the student union. And so, luckily, no shooting occurred, but you had someone that also had a weapon, a handgun. So let's be serious about this, and so let's start getting away from creating these type of, again, subjective framework, and let's start thinking about this. So the question is then, how do you determine liability? And that's really where it gets difficult. There are so many different factors and situations. But one of the key critical things that we have to, again, looking at is that you got two things. You have an individual and you have a weapon. The top four causes of death in the United States for people under the age of 25,
Mm-hmm.
number one is accidents. Okay,
Right. Motor
number,
vehicle accidents.
well, and many other type of accidents, but yeah, motor vehicle accidents. Number one is accident. Number two, suicide.
Mm.
Number three, homicide,
Mm.
murder.
Mm.
Number four is cancer.
Mm.
And those four, two of them, the prevalent mechanism, suicide and homicide, are guns. So you think about it, out of the top four, two of them are cause or access through weapons.
Right.
If you make that access, you change that formula, you can impact. And this is public health,
So this is preventable, basically.
preventable. And so the thing is that when you start looking at the issues, that how do we prevent this? Now, no, I'm not going to go off and again talking about, oh, we should then stop weapons and so forth. But some of the simple things that we can talk about is access to weapons, safe storage laws. They've shown to be to work. Also, under those laws are what you call child CAPS, child access prevention laws sections, which means that basically that if you own a weapon and you have
Mm.
children in the home, you have a legal responsibility
Mm-hmm.
to ensure that those weapons are locked away and that children do not have access to it. So, to give the audience a reminder, in 2021, November 30th, at the Oxford High School, you had, again, a young person who had a handgun, open fired, and killed, I think, like 6 people, or maybe
Mm.
up to 8. I mean, a large number of people,
Right.
okay? And last name was Crumbly. And what that case was notable was that for the first time in U.S. history, his parents
Mm.
were convicted for 10 years
Wow.
for manslaughter 4 counts. I
The
think
parents,
the
how old
parents.
was the child?
Child was a teen. It was high school.
Mm.
So they were convicted for manslaughter per count. So I think it was 4 fatalities, but they were convicted because it was egregious. So the school had called them to take him home. They were concerned about the child's mental health. They refused to take him home the day of the shooting. And 1 or 2 days before the shooting, they bought him a handgun.
Right, that was crazy. That was
So
just
so that but that
bizarre.
shows how egregious. So you have that kind of extreme
Right,
to what you're talking about was like, hey, you do everything you can, you got your child help, stuff like that,
right.
and for what
For whatever reason,
reason they make bad choices, mental health, bullying, whatever, and they go ahead and they harm others.
right,
And in this sad case in Wisconsin, she also killed herself. So
right,
it's just an overall tragedy.
right.
So the thing is that again, where do you turn the liability? And you have to remember, you have other parents who have lost. Like you got a teacher that was killed in Wisconsin, and you also have another child, and you have
And you have people that are
you know,
injured that are still in
at
the
the hospital. 2
hospital.
of them are still life threatening. So
Right.
again, so let's take again a total holistic understanding of this, and let's not just jump into again
Right. We're
judging
not
and name
just,
calling.
it's not
No,
just about, yeah, just
no,
judging. We're judging the
no.
parents. No,
This is
but we looking for, I guess, a way to understand it,
yeah.
and at some point, a way to, not that our opinion is going to offer solutions,
No,
but it's
but
just a way to think it through, and also to offer those that are parents just a different perspective, parents,
yeah.
grandparents, because like again in this situation she's 15, and like I said in the beginning, from what we can tell, her social situation, being moved from school to school, being moved from one parent's household to the next, probably played a role. And then they also said, of course, she seemed to be influenced by some sort of neo-Nazi,
Well, again,
but we don't
but
know.
again, again, human motivations are complex because
Right.
we have a lot of young people that live in homes that have joint custody and shared, and they bounce back and forth. Or you have those that have experiencing economic challenges, or even are being raised by those that are not their direct parents,
Mm-hmm.
and so forth. But they're not going out and shooting people. It's
Right.
like the same thing. Like you have many times you have those that are even raised by single parents doesn't make them automatically criminals and near the wells.
Absolutely
It means
not.
that they are factors that
Right. They're contributing
they
factors,
contribute
I
factors,
think.
but they're not the only factors.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's why it's complex, and in getting to all those other things, I think sometimes from again from perspective of control and access, if we look at the common denominators, one of those things is that you have a troubled youth and you have access to a weapon.
Right.
If you can reduce the access to weapon, because again, like I said, the number 2 cause of death for people under 25 is suicide. If you remove one of the access, it makes because it's one of those type of decisions that you can't pull back from, right?
Right.
So the thing too is that if we can reduce the access to the weapon, okay, we're not talking about infringing upon Second Amendment
Right,
rights
which
and all that
I
stuff.
was gonna say exactly. There are a lot
Right.
of Americans who feel it's very or anti-American to want to take away their access to
But we're
guns.
not taking away access to adults to their guns. We're
Mm-hmm.
talking about children.
Right,
Same reason why we don't give children access to cigarettes. We don't give them access to alcohol. We don't give them access to driving unless it's a very specific, but they have liability. So if a child gets into a car, then you're responsible for that child, and that
mm-hmm.
child gets into an accident,
Mm-hmm.
and they were supposed to be under your supervision. Well, guess what? You're responsible.
So again, going back to then the question, should this 15-year-old's parents be held responsible?
Well, that's why it depends. See, and I know that drives people's nuts, but it depends on a lot of those factors you outlined. If we go back to the Crumbly case, where they just got convicted this year,
Mm-hmm.
the thing is
And
is
that
that
case happened what year?
2021, so it takes
Wow, it
years.
took 3
Yeah, well,
years for
yeah,
them
it
to
takes
get
time.
convicted.
Well, yeah, because they have trial, they have due process, and so forth. But the thing is that again, if you look at those factors, Here you had someone that was in a mental crisis. They refused to take responsibility to take their child. They took their child home that day. That doesn't
Right.
mean that there couldn't have been a shooting the next week, whatever, but there wouldn't be the shooting that day. They didn't even take that child home. They gave a child who had issues, who
Right.
had issued threats. So it
Right.
wasn't like it just came out of nowhere. That child had warning signs. Sure, they bought that child a handgun.
Mm.
Okay, so this is what we're talking about. So again, this is the thing. As adults, as parents, how can you say not to judge?
Right.
How would you sit on a jury and listen to that type of evidence and then sit there like, well, we shouldn't judge? All right, you're being irresponsible. I'm just going to call it out right there. In that scenario, that hypothetical, it's not even hypothetical, that reality,
Right.
all right, that is where, yes, we should judge. That's the whole point of it. That's why it's called a jury. You're supposed to judge. You're supposed to say, like, wait a minute. When you're looking at manslaughter, you're looking at, again, the concept of that if you should have known or you have, it's foreseeable that if you
Right.
have given someone who has issued threats and said it was going to self-harm and harm others, and you buy them a gun, would that not be reasonably foreseeable? That's the
Right.
standard. Reasonably? Yes, it is.
Let me see what someone's saying. Allison says, I remember that shooting where the parents both were convicted for their son. That was crazy. About that, like Kenton said, the signs were there. Buying him a gun knowing he has mental issues is crazy. See Potential says, that's tough. So many variables. Tanya Mobley says, oh, the Detroit parents. I don't know what that was. Leona Taylor says, if they have guns laying around the house recklessly, they are responsible. Or she meant to say responsible, yeah.
Yeah. but
Tanya
it's
Mobley
recklessly,
says,
exactly.
right.
Yeah.
Right.
And that's exactly right. That's your point. Recklessness. That's what is negligence. That is one of the elements of negligence, is being reckless and knowing that, or should have known that this would be something. Just like you don't leave a loaded gun with toddlers.
Right.
How many times we've heard cases where, like, a woman was shot in her back in a car because she kept her weapon, her handgun, in the back seat, and her toddler reached over and pulled the trigger and shot her.
That's crazy.
She survived, but the whole point of the matter is that toddler could have shot themselves. Or how many times you hear about siblings shooting each other because they think it's a toy?
Now, is there an age cutoff? Let's say, like when we hear about the university students doing, going in there and committing crimes or killing and hurting people. When you're in university and you're, let's say, 18, 19, 20,
Yeah,
21,
you're an adult.
do you still think your parents should be held responsible?
No, you're an adult. That's different. It's cut off. You're 18, you're an adult. You're going to be tried as an adult.
Right.
You're tried adult. You don't. But when you're under 18,
But when you're in high school, obviously,
well, but the thing is, to 15, 14, see, this is the concept of agency, right? Just like you can't, under very limited situations, but a 14, 15, 16-year-old can't enter into a contract, right? They can't go in and sign a lease.
right. And we
Okay.
learned about that also with the whole diddly or diddly?
I don't know.
You know what I'm trying to say.
No, I don't.
You
Yeah,
can't,
yeah.
kids can't enter contracts.
They can't enter
Right,
unless,
go to parties. I'm talking
Well,
about P. Diddy.
well, but we're talking about, again, yeah, contracts, but we're talking about, again, contracts in regards
general.
in general,
Right.
lease of buying a vehicle and so forth.
Right.
Okay, because the whole point is that, again, it's about agency and so forth. So that's why one of the things is that in our society is that's why we have basically rules and legal framework to protect children.
Right.
Okay. This is one of the things, like, even in the First Amendment, we have freedom of speech, right? But in freedom of speech, we still limit certain types of speech to protect children, like indecency. So we don't allow indecent. We allow the FCC to restrict
Right.
certain language and sexual and exculpatory expressions for children during certain hours,
Right.
on certain program, on broadcast media.
Right.
Okay, so pay-per-view and stuff like that, that's different because it's treated as differently. But in general, anything that's open to the public, it gets restricted because you don't want to expose children to those things, like adult material and stuff
Right.
like that. Same thing with cigarettes. Same thing, again, with vice products. Well, one of those vice products is, again, firearms.
Right.
So
Now, what if this 15-year-old, her parents didn't buy her a gun? somehow they locked it up, but she
Okay.
figured how to get in
Well,
there and take it.
Well, see, this is different. So now you're moving into, again, this is like I teach. It's like now you're adding more elements, right? You're changing the flavor of the soup. Okay,
All
it's one
right.
way. Okay, so now you add the flavor. So, so no, but that's it. You're changing the flavor and trying to keep it. So as you add more ingredients, so assuming that the parents now in Wisconsin, they don't have, okay, what you call safe storage laws or CAP, child access prevention laws. They don't have it on the books.
Okay.
Wisconsin, Michigan, just like North Carolina, we're predominantly rural. So we have hunting, we have that stuff. So you do have where children aren't allowed to have weapons under except certain exceptions. One is being supervised, like on a shooting range,
Right.
or for hunting purposes.
Right, because obviously she took lessons with her father. There are
Right, and,
pictures
and
of
that's
her
and that's
shooting.
fine. That's fine in Wisconsin, is that they don't limit that because it's for a specific and again it's under supervision. However, handguns and so forth, that's a general, that's a no. That's children should not have that. But they don't have safe storage laws or children access prevention laws. That goes to what you're saying. So those laws require that if you're a legal authorized gun owner,
Right.
okay, because I make that distinction because technically if you have a felony, you're not supposed to have a weapon, okay? That's why I say legally authorized gun owner. If you have children in the home, then you need to have that locked up, or you need to have a gun lock on the weapon in itself.
So this girl got access to it. Let's just say
Well,
hypothetically.
she had to have. Well, she had to have access. The question is
Right.
that
Her
where
parents did not approve.
Well, we don't know where that gun came. That's part of the
Right.
investigation. Where did that gun come from? Who did? We don't know. Did her father give it to her? Did he gift it to her? Did he basically do what the Crumleys did with their son, who mind you got life imprisonment without parole?
The parents?
No, the child.
The child.
No, the parents got 10 years or more.
Wow.
But the whole point of the matter is that his life is over, and so I mentioned all those that he killed, those are the people, the children that he killed. It's so tragic. So
Right.
again, going back here, so that's why the access law, storage laws are important, is because again, it creates that responsibility onto it. So in North Carolina, we do have it. Okay, I believe it's statute 14-315, subsection 1.
Lord.
Yeah. So basically, what that is that again, it puts a responsibility as a gun owner, registered gun owner, is that you need to lock the weapons up. Now, the thing is that if you don't, and a child does something, brings it to school,
Right.
threatens someone, is found to have it, you can be then charged with and potentially convicted as a class 1 misdemeanor. Okay, which means basically a fine. There's no limit on the fine, so you can pay thousands to however the judge feels is the requirement the parents has to pay, and up to 120 days in jail. Okay, so you're talking about 4 months. And then there's all these different levels where you can do community service up to that if you had already had a criminal record or something like
Right.
that. But the bottom line, there's some level of responsibility. It's not to the extent where, again, like the Crumleys, where you're talking about years of being, because that's manslaughter. They were basically held responsible for the death of each of the children that were killed because it's so egregious. But you still are responsible.
Black Palace Music says peace, peace. Hope says today we are excusing actions, not holding people accountable. John says, sorry, is this your father or husband? All right, John, are you trying to be rude? Very funny. Hope says some yes, but not all. Tina Nigwewi, I'm not saying that right, says hello from Canada. Great conversation. Yes, hello, hello. Hi, Canada. I bet it's cold over there. Okay, so let's assume, let me tilt a little bit. Let's assume, what did I write here? Oh yeah, I wanted to talk a little bit about how parents nowadays, you have a lot of people, some people should not be parents. I guess is the flow I'm about to go. There are so many people who want to have children, but they're not ready for the responsibility of having children. And I had used that analogy where I was saying There are people, for example, they see a pet, they see a puppy, and they think, oh, it's so cute, it's adorable. I want to take that puppy, or I want that pet. I want that toy dog, without thinking about the responsibility of the years ahead. And in the case of a pet, or a dog or a puppy, we're talking at least 15 years. So a lot of people, instead of being gifted a puppy or being gifted a little animal, thinking it's just something going to be cute for a few years, they really need to start thinking about it as the long-term responsibility that it entails. And so the same way with being a parent, there are people who just want to get pregnant or just want a baby so they can show off to their friends, or so they can hold this title and say, yes, I'm a mother, or yes, I'm a parent, and they are not qualified to be parents. And what's your thoughts on that, Boo?
Yeah, I don't know. I think those are the examples you picked. And my thought is that it's a continuum. I don't think really most people are ready to be parents. It's like, I mean, even going back, it's not like you get like some master class, right?
But there's some people where it's just obvious that they
But that's
are
what I'm saying. But
not
that's one side. But see, again, it's like a spectrum. That's why you said the concept is that you have some that are extreme, where
right.
yeah, they're not responsible for even their own lives. They're just way out on the deep end. And then you have again the different variation where we all have some level of baggage, or we've had some challenges, and we all try and
No
do
one's
better.
perfect.
Right. See, so that's what I'm saying. So it's a process. It's like we all try to do what's best. And in many ways, children, are very resilient, more resilient than we give them. And then you have the other extreme where you have those that overcompensate. They try to be the best parent, which is really some sort of ideal that doesn't exist either. And I think it's really the in between. As long as you're there, you're present, you love your children, you try to be the best you that you can be, and it's a continuous process. And you make mistakes along the way, but it's
Right.
not the end of the world. And I
But
think,
you got to expect that something effed up is
but I
going to
think,
happen to your
but I
children
think
when you're not
But I
present,
think,
not
yeah, but I think that again, if you're again on the other side of the spectrum, and again, that's the thing where you're selfish. You think more about yourself than about the child, because that's really what it comes down to. Is I think if there are key things to learn about raising children is sacrifice. It's also the thing about any relationship, even in marriage or in a dedicated partnership. It is sacrifice. You have to compromise, and in many ways, you have to put your own personal needs again without jeopardizing. I mean, it's balance, but again, you got to be willing to overlook your needs for the better of the team, the better of the partnership,
right.
and that's just a general concept in any type of where you're working together for a common good. Same thing with the children is it's the same thing. And if that's something that you're not comfortable with, that's where you need to then really start rethinking about it. Is like, okay, how do I get comfortable with it? Or how do I
But
work on that?
unfortunately, when the child is already present and you realize you're not ready to be a good parent or to be present, it's
Well,
it's
but
it's
then
often too
but
late.
if you the key word is, well, no, it's never too late. It's just that I think it's never too late. I don't, you know what? I really don't.
I mean, it's
I
not too
tend to
late
think,
to change,
I don't think,
obviously,
I think
but I'm
it's never too
saying
late until you're dead.
no, but I'm just saying sometimes people are who they are, right? And for example, if you're in a dysfunctional relationship and you're constantly bouncing from one partner to the next, and that child doesn't have a stable home, I mean,
Sure,
unless you make some drastic life changes, what I'm saying is you've already set that child up to fail or to have some serious problems in their life that's going to be reflected either in the classroom or
well,
reflected in how
and
they
this is
deal with.
where then we as a society has to come face to face, is that we can't have throwaway children. This is where we as society sometimes have to step in. Okay, that's just where,
And what do you mean society having to step
well,
in?
that's children protective services, teachers. I mean, even with college students, I check in with them. How you doing? You're okay? What's going on? I noticed that you're not here. It's being present too. We have to be present, and sometimes that's part of it. And I think just like with the case with the Oxford High School, those teachers did the right thing. They called the parents. they got the school counselor. The parents weren't pulling their weight, and the tragedy happened. So it wasn't like they weren't doing. Everyone was doing what they were doing in that situation. Actually, this is why they got what they deserved, to go to jail.
Now, as you say that in terms of teachers and schools, I was reading some of the comments in some other videos where people were talking a lot about how a lot of these issues that we're seeing, these school shootings, if you put the parents aside for a second, a lot of it goes back to bullying, that a lot of these troubled youth at some point have been bullied significantly, and that the schools aren't addressing some of that problem, sufficiently. The schools or the parents or whoever, basically that child felt like they had to take matters into their own hands in some way, but that we're really not listening as a society to what's going on in the schools, and this whole issue of bullying, you know and that is part of the bigger problem, or the main problem.
That's one side, but the other side too is conflict resolution. See, we're not. See, yes, bullying. We do anti-bullying, but and yeah, we need to do better. Absolutely, but the other thing too is conflict resolution, where also at the same time, what message do we send to our young people when, for example, the CEO of United Healthcare got killed? And we have certain segment of our population, of our society, that's celebrating that to resolve that conflict required violence, or part of our political discourse is violence. And so at one hand we say, oh, we don't want this, but then we're celebrating the behavior, and that's part of that conflict resolution, is that we shouldn't be resolving, unless it's absolutely necessary, our problems through violence.
Right. That we think
That you know what I'm saying? That if I hate the world and this world's not working for me and stuff, instead of saying, okay, let's focus on a solution.
Right.
Let's focus on that conflict management.
Because that is it's because it's a very primitive emotion and way to think. When someone does something bad, and the first thing you want to do is smack them, or the first thing you want to do is hurt someone. I think I agree with you that we aren't.
That's what is part of that, is that learning how to manage, because in life, to navigate through the challenges, we all experience that. Someone cuts us off and we go to work, someone tries to sabotage what we're trying to do.
But with children, sometimes they feel it differently, and it's a lot more intense. And also, some children are really bullied.
Yeah.
To a great degree, to the point where I can understand where they don't want to go to school, or they hate their peer group, or they feel left out and isolated. And then, I guess you gotta.
No, and exactly, and that's what I'm saying. It's all these different things together. It's not one thing. It's not binary. And I think that's also part of the sometimes the media or the messaging is created as an either or.
Right.
And that's why it's complex, is because you got to have all these different players. Some of them are not necessarily in sync. That creates this type of dynamic, and that's why it's very important to have good teachers, good counselors, social support systems. A lot of it is systems that fail. So if one system fails, some other system somehow can come
especially
in
the home
and support.
You start with
but
the
the primary
home,
is the home. But again,
parents.
not all homes are equivalent.
Right.
They all have different challenges. And so sometimes when they fail, is there something to catch? Is it possible? And that's where the next point is school. Then the next point is church. Now here you have a school that is a church school.
Right. This happened at a school church.
So again,
right.
so this is all things. And so many times we have to look at it, it's like, what are these, what they call basically in society, the cornerstones, the fundamentals: school, home, church, and then social organizations.
But again,
Like
when you have a
Boys and
child
Girls Club, stuff like that. But again, it's also
that's
access.
been uprooted frequently,
Right.
those systems.
But the one thing that's constant is the school, right? Because
Well, she changed school.
right, but that's the whole thing. It's exactly, it's part of it, because that's also happened with some of these schools too. Is that the student changed schools and they're not known and stuff, and so it becomes very challenging.
Right. Let me see what someone's saying. F Doctor says, got to be open and transparent as parents with your children. True, study your child and take a vested interest in your child and surround them with supportive and loving village if you are not available.
Yeah,
True.
that's where extended family comes in.
Right.
you
Hope
know.
says necessary support is not always there for marginalized
Yeah.
and racialized children or young adults. Sees Potential said, just had a recent convo about it takes a village. Very true. Nothing wrong with a good support system and a true connection with loved ones. Also, Ari Anya says, and parenting classes and systems in place to address family issues once made aware of existing issues that affect children. Right. But again, it goes back a lot with parents, right?
Well,
It starts with them.
It starts with parents, but again, we have to acknowledge that there are so many different challenges in being a parent.
Right.
And so if you're a single parent, if there's economic challenges, you got absent fathers, you have all these different. So what is again? And I think again,
Or absent mothers.
absent mothers. I mean,
Because this
it happens.
15-year-old was out with her father
Well-
shooting, so clearly he was present to a certain degree.
present to that. Well, again, we
But
don't know.
we don't know.
We don't know.
Right.
But the whole point of the matter is that again, you have a lot of different factors, and it does truly take a village. And the thing is that it's about how do we get those that are in need access to the support that they have, and I think that's really what comes in. But then when you have systems that are being challenged because funding is being cut for mental health, when you don't have the type of support organizationally for common sense laws to prevent access to weapons, when you don't have, again, monies to pay teachers. Because see, what is that there's also burden shifting, because if you have parents that don't do what they need to do,
Right.
then we put everything on teachers.
Right.
It's kind of like where we put a lot of mental health issues on police, and they're not equipped to deal
No,
with that.
absolutely
We see
not.
it over and over again, where you end up with tragedies happen. They may mean well, many of them, but they're just not equipped for it. So we constantly do what is called burden shifting, where we put a lot more responsibility onto, instead of putting resources into the organizations or the people that are equipped to do it, we're shifting more of it without providing the money and resources.
Right.
But we're putting more responsibility. So teachers now are becoming more responsible to deal with mental health. And now so some states are talking about, to prevent this, we need to then give teachers guns. Instead of sitting there going like, wait a
Right.
minute, it's not about escalating and
Adding to the problem.
turning into an OK Corral shooting range inside of a school. We need to, again, common sense, reduce access to weapons. Children shouldn't have access to arms anyways. Have safe storage laws, better mental health crisis, pay teachers more, get them the proper training, get embedded security in schools, and also have good counseling. Strengthening also the homes, make sure parents are able to have time off to take care of their children,
Right.
So paid leave. I mean, it's a holistic
I mean, there's a whole
approach.
there's a whole list of things.
Because it's a public
but
health
someone
issue.
could also argue a lot of those things cost money, and a
Everything
lot of those
costs money.
things,
But everything
easier
costs.
said than done.
But look, see, this is the thing, and this is how we have to get real. All right, we are a well-developed country, but we have the highest rates of suicide and homicide compared to other developed countries. We have to get real, and that's the thing, is that we can sit there and talk about it, but like it opened up, a conservative 38 incidents of school shootings up to 83. That's one every other week, or one or twice a week, depending upon how, again, you define school shooting. All I know is that a year ago, I had one on campus, and a professor lost their life at the school I teach at. So, I mean, if you're talking about hitting close to home, I mean, we had lockdowns and all that sort of stuff. So let's get real here. But is that what you want? I grew up where we didn't have school shootings. I don't remember school shootings.
Really, you think?
Let me think. I know.
I mean, the culture in America, from what I can see, coming here as an immigrant, people love their guns
Yeah,
and
but
they
we didn't
want
have, but we
access to
didn't,
their
we
guns.
did not, the biggest thing
And
when
maybe
growing
some
up,
of it is a cultural shift, perhaps.
the biggest thing was that getting kidnapped and being
Yeah, I
on milk
remember,
cartons. Yeah,
yeah,
being
all the
pictured on
milk
milk
cartons. I
cartons.
mean, it's not funny. I'm
No,
sorry. It's
well,
not funny, but
but you know what? But the thing was that a lot of people were missing at that time. But you know what was also prevalent at that time? Hitchhiking.
mm,
But then when hitchhiking stopped, people stopped hitchhiking. People became more aware. A lot of that stuff. That doesn't mean we don't have missing people. We do,
we have missing people all the time. Yeah, but not,
not to the degree it was
right.
back in the '70s, early '80s. And the thing is that our safety drills were about earthquakes and tornadoes and stuff like that. Now
In
you
California.
have lockdowns. You have
Right.
our kids grew up in an area of school shooting.
Now, when we were talking about all these resources and how the government needs to put more money into resources and paying teachers and all of that, there's this assumption as if all the shooters come from either disadvantaged backgrounds or come from homes that are dysfunctional. When I'm thinking a lot of these shooters have come from normal families or normal or well-off even families.
Yeah, but paying teachers across the board has nothing to do with the economic disparity of
No, I know, but you
children.
brought it up as one of the solutions.
No,
You know.
yeah, I brought it up as in creating a better support system because
Right.
again, it works across the board.
But I'm just saying that some of these kids may have come from even the best of social and parental upbringing and still come out and do these effed up things.
And again, it goes back to the access of the weapons. Because again, if you take all these different approaches, it takes all these different approaches.
Right.
But it's not one size fits all.
Right.
But the common denominator, again, with suicide and homicide in the top four causes of death, age 25 and under, are guns. And so 18 and up, they can get the weapons, but children below should not have access to weapons unsupervised.
Right.
Unless it's for
Which is hard to do as they get older in a house where there are guns.
Not if you lock them up. You get gun safety locks, and again, this is part of being responsible. Hey, you don't sit there and give your kids the keys to the car, right?
But some kids will steal the keys to the car,
But see,
right?
then you're not responsible because if the kid does that, then that's why the kid then gets it. See, that's an exception. If the kid goes ahead as an aberrant, so that's why we go back to again the safe storage law. It doesn't automatically means so if you do all the right things, you lock it up, you put it in a safe, you put a gun lock on it, it's unloaded, but all the things for safety, and that child, because again, you're going to have sometimes you have deviant children. Deviant individuals, to be specific.
They came out deviant. Do you think that? Do you think some kids come out deviant?
Some kids are born on parole?
That just come out not right, just come out evil.
It can happen. It happens. Again.
Or do you think they learned to that, or they were forced into that behavior?
Again, it's that nature versus nurture. Sometimes it's like the right lock and the right key. You may have the genetic predisposition, but you had such a supporting environment that you didn't happen. That you don't have, or just like we've started understanding like being a sociopath, but you've learned to channel it into positive things. Now you're a CEO.
Right.
You're still a sociopath.
Right.
You don't have the best interests of other humans. You're not empathetic.
Right.
But you're able to channel that to become a productive human being in a capitalistic society, right?
Tina says, I think it's a cultural thing. I remember knowing as a child in Nigeria that USA is the Wild West and they love guns. Archer Sunshine says, you guys feel like family. These are the types of discussions we have at home all the time. Hey, Archer, we are family. Thank you.
Yeah, we are. I'm a cousin.
Kenton's the light-skinned cousin.
I'm the light one. I burn easy.
Hope says, Kenton, so true. Wisteria says the title is cut off on the app. What is the topic? Oh, my Lord. Okay, I'll go back and I'll adjust that when we're done. But yeah, the topic was initially whether parents should be held responsible for their children's crimes or shooting specifically. Because, here in the U.S., there've been a ton of school shootings, and we're wondering, should more parents be held responsible? That was the topic, or that's what I should have written in the title. Not sure how it came out. All right, y'all. So Ken, you may have to run, right?
Yep.
So Ken has to run, and I hope you found this discussion interesting. 44 minutes we were on, so we were on for quite a while. Definitely leave us your thoughts. What do you think? Is there a specific or particular situation when you think a parent is not responsible if their child goes up and shoot up a school, or, kills or hurts somebody, and whether or not you've had any personal experiences with difficult children, or deviant children, or you yourself are struggling as a parent, there's that too. Right, Boo?
Yeah, because you could try to do everything right, and you're just getting tested.
Right.
I mean, you can be tested, especially if, unfortunately, they hang out with a bad crowd.
Right.
You do everything, you go to church, or you have a social group, they go boys club, you try to get some positive role models, but they just have that friend or group of friends that just, that keep getting them into that short-term cycle of
Right.
trouble.
Right.
And you're just at wit's end. I mean, this is where I say, this is where, how do we get them into the support to help their children not become part of the system? Because like it says, if you don't correct that child, society's going to do it. And it never comes out good when society does it. Because what
Right.
it is, it becomes a trap. Because when society starts, it's not really a true correction. It becomes a repeat and rinse type of cycle of the criminal justice system.
And in the future, society's, apparently the legal system is also going to be trying to correct the parents.
Well,
Right.
depends if the parents don't do their job.
Right.
In extreme situations, not
Right.
in general.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. All right,
All right.
folks. Thank you for hanging out with us. Don't forget to give us a thumbs up and leave us a comment. And yes, we are family. Happy Vlogmas, y'all.
Yeah, I'm not her father.
That was just someone being rude. How
That's
could you be
right.
my father? Please. How? My father is in Nigeria, and he's a dark-skinned, tall black man, okay?
Daddy's gonna spank you.
Boo! Get
What?
off. Bye. End.